Webby Pumpkin log number 873. I have to be quick before they find me. I have finally figured out the way to make sure that your controllers never die. And it's brilliant. We should have thought this the entire time. You take controller A that is broken. You mix those parts with controller B that is also broken. And you get controller C that is slightly less broken. And then those things continue to work. Don't let it... Oh no, they're here. I have to go. So let me tell you guys about what you just saw. I went to a little local shop yesterday just to try to just browse, honestly. It's like they sell retro video games and things like that. And in the parking lot, what I found was a PS5 controller that had been run over. I took it inside to see if someone maybe had lost it, or, I mean, it was pretty much dead, but just to, be a good Samaritan, pass it on. And they were like, nah, he tried to sell it, but it has drift. So he got angry and just threw it in the parking lot and ran it over. So I was like, well, I mean, if you guys don't want it, I have my buddy Topaz. You guys know Topaz. We do the podcast together. I have my buddy Topaz's controller that his daughter decided to give a bath in their toilet. And so it didn't work. The board was just shot on it. So I had an idea. Could I take the busted up, messy controller that definitely has the devil's lettuce stickers on it and combine it with the one that he had given me and make a working controller? And yeah, you'll just have to wait and find out. To start things off, I really was kind of scared to even plug in the one that had been run over because I didn't know what the inside of it looked like. So even though I normally wouldn't do it this way, I actually started by dismantling the broken controller and pretty much decided to full send. Like I was going to swap everything around and then test it to see if it worked. While I was dismantling the broken controller, before I got to the battery component, it started flashing blue, and that gave me a pretty good indication that the controller probably was functional. At least it was before it got run over. That led me down a path of a lot more trial and error than I realized. You see, when I finally got the donor controller open and then Topaz's controller open, I recognized that not all DualSense controllers are created the same. This is something I didn't know. This is something you guys might not know. But it turns out, I don't know the differences on them. When I check the model numbers on the back, they match up for the most part. Obviously, things like the FCC ID and the IC number are different, but the actual model is CFI-ZCT1W for both controllers. And so I thought they'd be just the same. However, on the busted one, there is a little bit more text. I'm not really sure what all of it means, other than the fact that it must be notating that there is a difference. On Topaz's controller, you'll see a green panel. It's not really a panel. I forget what it's called. And you'll see a blue panel on the donor controller. There are different ribbon cables. The touchpad is different. It uses like a 12-prong cable on Topaz's controller. However, on the donor controller, it was like, I think it was 10-prong when I counted it. And so I ended up not being able to reuse as much parts as I had originally hoped that I would. I actually had to try to make everything on the donor controller work, because when I did plug in, for the triggers, even though those ribbon cables will connect to the donor board, they just give you a flashing yellow light. Like nothing happens. I don't know what kind of check and balance is happening, but the controller won't even charge when you have mismatched triggers, which I found really interesting. So the only thing I could do then was to reassemble with the trigger module for the donor controller. The problem is, since they ran it over, the actual trigger itself was crumbled into 1,000 pieces. So I had to completely dismantle the trigger module on Topaz's controller so that I could transfer that trigger over to the trigger module for the donor controller. And it's not that complicated when you finally get into it, but it's pretty remarkable the amount of engineering that goes into those adaptive triggers. I moved everything over and did it wrong, got it all put back together, and sat it in front of my PlayStation for the final reveal. And wouldn't you know it, It worked. It did come on, but there was a consistent ticking that kept coming from the left side of the controller. So I was like, well, crap, I guess that controller module's wrong, so I'm going to have to completely replace all of the gears. This is something that I didn't actually get on film because it added I thought it would just be a quick fix. It added an extra like 35, 40 minutes to the whole project for me. But it turns out there's a gear inside of the control module that has to be placed exactly in the correct position. Also, the gears, because I used the better gears from Topaz's controller, the initial run of the PlayStation controller is wider, ever so slightly wider than the donor controller. So when I used the gears out of the first controller in the donor controller, it would pinch, and so nothing would move. You couldn't actually depress the trigger. So I had to go back and try to clean up and fix the original gear, put that in there, got it locked correctly, and then the next time that I tested it, it worked completely fine. Unfortunately, I do still have drift in the left stick. I decided I was going to try to, be a big boy fixer and desolder the analog stick from Topaz's controller to put on the donor controller board. And I tried. I only have this little cheap soldering iron that I've used for little odd and end projects. And so I heated it up and I let it warm and warm and warm to the point that I burned my finger and pressed it against the prongs, and not a single time did it even really leave a blemish in the solder. So I don't know enough about soldering. If you guys know in the comments and can let me know, I'd like to learn more about soldering. I don't know much about it. I guess they use some type of high temp solder, and my soldering iron just could not get hot enough to do it. I'm not really sure. So I'd love to hear what you guys think, what kind of advice you can give me. I apologize if you hear any squeaking or craziness in the background. As you can see, I'm in a different location than normal. We're at the lab. I'm actually at my wife's school. I came to help her today, but I needed to get this edited or shot and edited for you guys. So I think it actually ended up being a pretty cool, moody set. So I'm down for it. But let me know what you guys think. I did get it working. Unfortunately, it still has drift. If you guys could answer my questions about how to solder or desolder that, I'd love to 100% fix this thing and get it fully functional, but I just don't know what I'm doing, so help me out. Guys, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Thank you so much to our Giant Pumpkin members. If you don't know what that is, we have memberships here on the channel, and if you're a Giant Pumpkin, you actually get your name listed right here at the bottom of the screen as just a thank you, one of the many thank yous for all the support. But there are different tiers that you can support at. The middle tier gets you not only early access to videos like the one that you're watching right now, you could have watched that a little bit earlier, but also it gets you an additional bonus episode of my podcast, the one with Topaz. Remember, every single episode has a bonus episode, and they're all available to members right now. So if you signed up right now, you'd have Thursday's episode and every episode before that for season 4. I think it's a pretty cool deal. It's like an investment. You can get in early and support, or if you get in right now, then you've just got a slew of content that you can enjoy on your drive or when you're cleaning around the house or whatever it is that you're doing. Guys, if you want to hang out with me and ask me any questions also, I'm live pretty much every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday over at twitch.tv/WubbyPumpkin. Would absolutely love to hang out with you there. And and also just sorry for the way I sounded. I've been kind of sick this week, and I thought I'd be better by now, but it doesn't seem to be that way. So thank you guys, love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode. See ya.